Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're here with us today. We are about to explore a truly classic piece of English literature. And honestly, it tackles a question that is just as relevant today as it was the very day it was written. We're going on a little journey into The School for Sympathy. It's this brilliant short story that kind of forces us to hit pause and completely rethink what true education really looks like.
Okay, let's dive into this. Can true empathy actually be taught in a classroom? I mean, we usually think of school as a place strictly for academics, right? Math, science, history, reading from heavy textbooks. But can we actually engineer compassion? Is it possible to create a syllabus for the human heart? Well, this is the exact central mystery we're going to unpack today by looking at a highly unique fictional educational institution. Section 1. Inside Miss Beam's School, A Visitor's Journey.
Our story is anchored by this curious visitor who has heard all these whispers and rumors about a place with incredibly innovative teaching methods. Just imagine the scene for a second. He arrives at the school grounds, looks around, and just observes the children playing out in the courtyard. Now, on the surface, it might look like literally any other school, but this place has a very special reputation. It's known far and wide not just for churning out top-tier scholars, but for its moral-based teaching. The visitor knows he isn't there to observe traditional academics. No, he's there to uncover a completely different system of education altogether.
And right at the center of this whole operation is Miss Beam. When our narrator first meets her, he describes her as this kind, motherly woman, but with a very firm, gentle manner. She is absolutely, completely in command of her classroom. But when she actually begins to explain her curriculum to the visitor, it is nothing like what he expects. Her radical objective isn't just to produce intelligent minds. It's to actively teach sympathy, kindness, and really deep consideration for other people.
Section 2, the special exercises, experiencing the world differently.
So, Miss Beam reveals the absolute core of her method to our visitor. It's a system she simply calls the days. Basically, each child is required to play the role of a disabled person for one full day. On blind day, a child is completely blindfolded and has to be guided around by others. On lame day, their leg is bandaged up or they have to use crutches. Deaf day requires having their ears gently plugged with cotton, and on mute day, they cannot speak at all, they can only communicate by writing. And here is the absolute genius part of all this. While one student is experiencing this temporary disability, their classmates are specifically tasked with taking care of them. They are literally practicing in real time how to help someone in need.
Section 3. A lesson in empathy, the blind girl's perspective. Now, our narrator, who is still kind of trying to wrap his head around this whole radical concept, goes out to speak directly with a student who is right in the middle of her blind day. Her eyes are carefully covered up, and she tells him just how terrifying it is to suddenly not be able to see, how she's constantly worried she might bump into something or trip. But then she shares this incredibly profound realization. She says that such days make everyone realize the pain and challenges of people with disabilities. And even more than that, she tells the narrator about the overwhelming kindness of her classmates who are guiding her. She isn't just learning about blindness, she is learning firsthand about the fundamental goodness of her peers.
The narrator is just profoundly moved by this interaction. He realizes that Miss Beam has unlocked a fundamental truth about human nature here. Sympathy is taught by experience, not by preaching. I mean, think about it. You can lecture children all day long about being nice to others, but true education requires making children actually feel for others. He ends up leaving the school completely transformed by Miss Beam's vision.
Section 4. The man behind the story. Meet Evie Lucas. So who was the brilliant mind that actually conceived this beautiful educational metaphor? Well, that would be Edward Virile Lucas, who lived from 1868 to 1938. Lucas was a very prominent English essayist, a journalist, a critic, and a fantastic short story writer. He was highly celebrated in classic English literature for his gentle humor, his really sharp wit, and these incredibly thoughtful moral undertones that he wove into his work.
Lucas had a very specific, recognizable writing style. He masterfully blended humor with deep reflection. His ultimate goal, which is actually a lot like Miss Beam's, was to entertain and educate simultaneously. He loved using basic observations of everyday life and society to impart these really profound moral lessons. Some of his most notable works include Character and Comedy, Listener's Lure, and The Open Road. And The School for Sympathy fits just perfectly into his portfolio. It serves as a classic example of his belief that our everyday interactions are absolutely our best teachers.
Section 5. Education Beyond the Books, Analyzing the Themes.
What is Lucas really trying to teach us here about social responsibility? Well, if we break down the exact contrast he sets up, it's pretty striking. Traditional education focuses heavily on academics and books, whereas Miss Beam focuses on character and compassion. Traditional methods rely a lot on theoretical teaching. Miss Beam, on the other hand, relies entirely on experiential learning. And perhaps most importantly, while traditional schools aim to graduate highly intelligent minds, Miss Beam's ultimate goal is to graduate kind hearts.
Which really brings us to a critical concept that Lucas was championing way before it ever became a modern educational buzzword, and that is experiential learning. It's the concept that learning through direct experience is significantly more powerful than theoretical teaching. We just cannot truly understand another person's suffering until we quite literally walk in their shoes. Miss Beam's school fosters this incredible spirit of helpfulness because the students have lived on both sides of the equation, you know? They've needed help themselves, and they've given it to others.
And this brings us right to the ultimate moral lesson of Lucas's masterpiece. Education must produce not only intelligent minds, but kind hearts. Preparing children to be top-tier scholars is totally fine, but preparing them to be responsible, considerate members of society who view helping others in need as the highest possible virtue, now that is true education. That is what actually makes society more humane, more supportive, and just better for everyone.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this somewhat provocative thought. How can we walk in the shoes of others today? We might not have a literal blind day or deaf day in our modern workplaces or our schools, but the philosophy of Miss Beam is completely timeless. Empathy isn't just some passive trait you have or you don't. It is an active practice. So how can you step out of your own perspective today and directly try to understand the challenges someone else might be facing? Think about it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep seeking those focused insights, and I will see you next time.